So, welcome everyone to this call, which is being run by the guys from the Initiation Journey for Australia, which is coming up in November 17 to 23. And today we're going to be talking about the dark masculine and what is the dark masculine, how does that vary from the shadow masculine and the light masculine? And this is a really juicy topic and something that I have really had to do quite a bit of inner work with to cultivate. And I think that'll come up through our conversation over the next 90 minutes or so. And on the call with me, I have my dear colleague that's going to be facilitating with me in Northern Rivers, which is Terence Carfrae. So, welcome, Terence. Great to have you near the Northern Lights joining us.
Yeah, I'm coming from way north at the moment. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Great to be here. Super excited about this upcoming retreat.
Yeah, yeah. And I was actually just in the Netherlands last week running this initiation journey. And one of the nights when I was there, I didn't get to see it, but there were northern lights shining in the sky in the Netherlands when I was there, just a couple of days after that solar flare was happening. So, yeah, you're on theme. And we're all on theme with this dark masculine. And what does the dark masculine, if I say that, what is the first thing that comes up for you, Terence?
It's a great question. And it was only recently that I did a dive into the concept of the dark masculine. I used to equate it with what is probably called the shadow masculine or toxic masculinity. But then there was this beautiful discernment that was offered to me of what the light masculine is, what the dark masculine is. And to me now, to create some contrast with the concept, I would say the dark masculine is the opposite of the nice guy persona. And whereas the nice guy doesn't have good boundaries, he's a pushover, he's a people pleaser. He doesn't really know himself. He finds safety and security in trying to associate with women and doesn't like associating with men. These are kind of be the antithesis of what the dark masculine represents. And so for me, the dark masculine, it represents claiming my human animal power and sovereignty in the world with things, with my body, with the people around me, in being able to defend myself, in being able to name what my boundaries are, name what my desires are, and to be unapologetic about who I am and what is natural and honorable for me, making no apology to anyone who may have a different opinion of that. It's like, that's great. That's your opinion. And this is true for me. And being able to stand solid in that.
I can so agree with that. I have for a long time been, a people pleaser and the nice guy and really living that place, through marriage as well, where I was completely submissive in that, giving my power to my partner, happy wife, happy life, and really just giving my power away. And one of the clarifications that came through for me with this definition of the dark masculine was the difference between the dark, shadow, and evil. And I think it's really important context to get an idea of the difference between the dark, shadow, and evil. And so the way that I understand it and the way that I look at it and speak to it is that the shadow element is really that aspect of, what's in the unconscious, maybe those patterns that are playing out that I don't have awareness of. Or maybe I do have awareness, but I recognize that they're running from a pattern that isn't in my highest vibration, right? And so that's kind of the shadow aspect. When I think of the dark, I often use a tree as the analogy. And so you have everything that's above the surface, which is in the light, which is our fruit, our flowering, our expression out into the world. But if we don't have any roots that go deep into the earth, where we pull up the nutrients from the Mother Earth and we really hold our power, then any gust of wind is just going to blow us over. Any circumstance in the outside world is just going to knock us over, and we're just going to you know, be the nice guy and do what is needed, to appease the outside. Whereas if I am deeply rooted in my own truth, then these outer storms can happen and I can stand firm in my truth and still, dance with my branches and my leaves and my flowers and drop my fruits into the world. So it's not like I'm rigid and cold and, not connecting to life, but I'm connecting it from my center, from my truth, which is grounded. And then evil is basically the flip of live. And that is where the best definition for me is the intent to do harm in one way or another, where my actions are moving against the flow of life. And there is this thing of wanting to get something out of it as opposed to being something that is giving life. And so I think, that definition of the shadow, the dark, and the evil gave me some clarity as well.
Amazing. It's another definition I heard for uh, light and dark masculine is light masculine being able to penetrate consciousness with presence, and the dark being able to penetrate the material world with presence. And to see like the tree image, that motif that you painted so beautifully there of this the tree in the light, in the ether, in consciousness, and then the material in the earth and the roots in the dark, and to penetrate. And the tree is penetrating upwards into that ether, into that space, and the roots are penetrating down into the material world. I really like that. So to penetrate consciousness with presence, and to penetrate the material world with presence. And the key I'm hearing in what you're saying also is that there is awareness. When we bring awareness into how we're living, whether it's with the light or whether it's with the dark, the awareness is key, whereas the shadow is the lack of awareness. There may be expression in whatever form, but the tree isn't growing with purpose or direction. Um, and then evil, to me, yeah, I really I find myself very curious about evil. I love that flip of live, evil being opposites. And I have also the words honor and dishonor. To live in honor is to live in the light, into the awareness of the masculine, the dark, the light. But to live in dishonor is to go against intentionally, which, as you said, is to intend to do harm. And I tend to agree. It's when someone has a knowing inside of themselves through their awareness of the righteous way to go, and they choose against that. And yeah, evil is an interesting thing that I've had to come to terms with, that does exist in the world, that there are those that do choose intentionally to go against what is righteous, what is honorable. And it's a very interesting concept. I don't like to dance around it too much, to be honest. I find it quite abhorrent. I find my whole body has an aversion to it. But yeah, the stepping into the shadow aspects of masculinity, though, which I often find that the areas of the shadow, the lack of awareness is, if I was to take a guess, I'd say most of the men that I've worked with have lack of awareness in their dark aspects, in their ability to be able to penetrate the material world with presence. That is where they're still operating unconsciously, and then they don't have deep roots. And then that lack of deep roots translates into an inability for their tree to grow tall, for them to experience the fruits of higher consciousness planes. How would you how would you feel about those concepts? Does that ring true for you too?
Yeah, it really does. And, I think that there is this association with dark and evil because, it's Hollywood has definitely made that association. And also when you are playing in the light, for example, we talk about the light masculine. If we went beyond the wheel of consent in the light masculine, he's maybe going into too much meditation or into aspects of being in too much of that caring space. Whereas if we go outside the wheel of consent in the dark, that's really where, a lot of harm can come into matter, where we're penetrating deep into that matter. And I think that it's fair enough that is an association, but it's really for me the one of the things that I guess I've learned, and it's just touching on this, is with the toxic masculinity and the dark masculinity. And for me, toxic masculinity most of the time, and I would say 80 to 90% of the time, isn't actually toxic, which it has an intent to do harm. It's just immaturity. And this immaturity and lack of understanding and lack of education and leadership from the men around, what does the dark masculine look like and how can he penetrate into this material world without this power over dynamic, which can
Yeah.
happen so easily.
Yeah. The power over thing is very fundamental here because we are playing with the concepts of power. And in the realms of the physical plane, as masculine bodied beings, as male bodies, we do have this gift of physical power. And I think one of the ways that I like to play the game in my mind of understanding dark masculine is to think of something that is quite a taboo topic, has been seen as toxic, and yet without doubt has been necessary throughout our history as a species for our survival, and that is violence. And when is violence the dark masculine? When is it shadow? When is it evil? When is it toxic? And I often think of boundaries and where at the point of a boundary being challenged or crossed would I come into necessitating acting in a violent manner to be able to protect my wife from a rapist, to be able to protect my child from an animal that's coming at them, to be able to mobilize that power, to be able to penetrate the physical world in service of life.
Yeah.
And there are many other aspects of it, but I have personally found violence to be one of those really interesting things of like, when is violence like a righteous act?
Mm. Ryan or Pete, I would love to see if you guys have got some input on that thing, the righteousness of violence, and when is that, when does it have a healthy place, and can it have a healthy place? Pete.
Um, yeah, I'm getting triggered by your use of the word righteous or righteousness. And in my experience, somebody who's righteous is somebody who is trying to push their views, their beliefs onto me in a righteous sort of way. Um, and I much prefer the idea of what is right in the circumstances. What am I called to do in this moment? What's the truth that's here, rather than yeah, just delving into a belief system and trying to support that and trying to beat somebody over the head with it, frankly.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting. I do want to challenge you on that because the actual definition of righteous is far from what you pointed out. It's to be something that is good and excellent and morally right or justifiable. It is something that is basically honorable. But righteous has been used like in the world in a way that I think is synonymous with how you're interpreting it. And so, I honor your trigger there and just want to offer some clarification.
and thank you for that, because I actually agree with you. And yet that's what the word seems to have become.
Yeah,
Um,
agree.
so yeah. And the other thing I might mention is, Jason, you talked about most people who are being toxic. Um, um, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it seems to me that the whole definition of somebody who's behaving toxically is to do so without awareness. And it's not about whether they intend to be that way or not, but it's what the impact of their behavior is.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Pete. And for me, the thing is, if I if I'm a young man and no one has shown me healthy ways to honor myself and my boundaries, and I'm acting through immaturity, and then I'm labeled as being toxic, that doesn't give me supportive growth. It's like telling a
Yeah,
child that they're a toxic walker when they can't walk yet.
yeah. Yeah, no, look, I totally agree with you. Um, and yet their behaviour may come across as toxic, even though they don't intend it to be.
Correct.
It's a function of unconsciousness or unawareness.
Yeah.
Well, it can be, rather than deliberately wanting to cross appropriate boundaries.
And that's where I believe that the receiver of that,
Yeah.
if I then label you as toxic or if I label you as immature, my level of compassion for you as being an immature man who hasn't learned how to do this invites me to teach you. Whereas if you do, and if I label you as being toxic, I want to exclude you from my community.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a really, really important point because we don't want to exclude men who haven't been educated. We want to educate them, not isolate them.
Mm. I was I was delivering a piece in another piece of men's work, which was a diversity piece. And what I was essentially saying was that this organisation welcomes diversity, men of all shapes and colours and religions and sizes and competency levels, and you name it. I said the only person or the only men who are not welcome are those who are not prepared to allow others to be who they were in the space. And one of the other leaders jumped in and said, "Well, actually, those men are welcome too. What we do with them is we love them until they can accept
Mm,
everyone else who's in there." And it was a beautiful lesson for me
mm.
around my own unawareness, actually.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And I just want to swing back to the question that we had around violence and when is violence okay?
Well, if you go to the Middle East at the moment, there's a lot of people who are perhaps, dare I say it, being righteous about the violence that they're exerting on each other.
Hmm.
Um, I absolutely go with what Terence was saying about it's okay to be violent, and this was the implication, I think, in order to protect somebody, your partner or a woman who's about to be raped or mistreated in some significant way, um, to protect a child, to protect even a pet. Um, the whole RSPCA exists in order to protect them. But the question in my mind is not, is violence ever justified? Because I'm sure it is, but whether or not, as men, we resort to violence as a first resort rather than a last resort.
Yeah.
So
Well, why do you
how
think
many?
that is?
I reckon it's inculcated to some degree in our culture, and it's about if somebody stands up to me, am I going to back off and say, "Hey, guy, I'm not interested in having a testosterone pissing contest. Um, I just want to go about my business."
Mm,
But I do recall times like that when I was younger, and I just step closer to those people
mm.
and try to be more threatening than about them than they were about me. And that was, I'm sure, just my lack of experience in the world, lack of maturity, and that in turn was about not necessarily having choices that I was aware of. Like, well, I could actually turn around and walk away, and would that have me imagine myself to be a coward or a smart person for having walked away from a fight?
Yeah, it's very circumstantial. Ryan,
Isn't it?
have you got something you would like to add to this?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that circumstantial aspect to it, and it also being quite a subjective piece. For example, there's a quote that really resonated with me deeply, which is that one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And it allowed me to kind of see things through a more open lens. And the piece that really interests me about this, as someone that's working on my pleasing patterns and also have a lot of shame connected to times in the past where I have behaved immaturely, putting my masculine assertion
egoic tendencies to control others through business and assert myself over others in a emotionally violent way, you could say, and the shame that I hold around that. And so my game at the moment, which I'd love to throw it out there in the space and set as an intention to work on at the next retreat, is being able to have awareness, which is that foundational piece that was brought in already in the call, have awareness over what is actually true for me, what my boundary is, and what my specific intentions are and my goals are, and who I want to be, how I want to show up in the world, and then be able to act in alignment with those intentions, goals, values, etc., and feel solid in myself, knowing that it's all done with awareness. So for me at the moment, that looks like expressing myself in the world with marketing and promotion, and there's shame there, and there's fear of judgment there. And so in those moments where the shame and the fear of judgment come in, I lose my awareness and I go into fear consciousness. So I'm not actually being able to access the dark masculine with conscious awareness. And this is one thing that I'm really struggling with and working through to balance. So yeah, I really feel like that knowing myself and knowing what my values, goals, intentions, boundaries are, and then holding awareness there. So even if I did have to act in violence in a certain way, I could move to the other side of that going, yeah, I feel an integrity with that and I don't feel shame. I actually feel like I know myself, I know what I want to do, I know why I want to do it, and I did it, and therefore I'm clean in my own conscience. And that's what's swirling around for me right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks. And Terence, I'd love to hear from you. Like, how important is it to know yourself to be able to own your dark masculine?
Mm. Look, I'm so inspired by this conversation right now and hearing both Pete and Ryan describe where they're at with the concepts of violence uh, and awareness. And um, I want to touch on that a little bit of just what I mentioned earlier was the beauty of being able to go into the thought experiment of where is violence necessary. And one of the reasons for that is I think there is a large push in the world to have men judge violence as being toxic, as being unnecessary, and to become meek, to become very compliant in the world, and it makes them, there's a thing out there: you're going to be a sheep or you're going to be a lion, and that's been touted a little bit in pop culture at the moment. And I think for men to awaken into the realization that we are these very effective animals at being able to be violent, that it is in our DNA, it's in our prehistory, it's our lineage going back from our father right the way through. If we track that back, guaranteed there's going to be innumerable ancestors of ours, of each one of us listening to this, that was a very effective killer. And that enabled for us to be here today
Mm.
and to come into relationship with that. And it's not about then just glorifying this ability that we have to be able to be ultra violent, to be able to kill and to be able to defend or whatever, but it's to come into the relationship of the awareness that a man that has that capacity would need to be honorable in the world. Every gradation along the way where he can maintain awareness of what is the best way to interact with this situation where my boundaries are being challenged. Maybe it's someone just trying to assert some emotional um, thing onto me, or some mental idea onto me, or maybe it's someone trying to push me around in a line, or maybe it's someone that wants to swing at me. Maybe it's someone that has a knife. What level of awareness do I have in that moment to know how to meet that challenge in a good way? And to go through that experiment to its end result of like, okay, what is the most extreme situation? And how would I be able to bring my full self there? And in talking about the dark masculine, that thought experiment, and if you're able to go into the actual training of it in, say, a martial art, to know how to modulate and moderate yourself and your energy through it, to me is a very physical, real way of training our own dark masculine.
Mm.
And so the importance of that, which I think was your question that you asked, of embodying this, like to me, I noticed that before I started playing those thought experiment games, before I started training in some martial arts, before I found myself willing to step into the fire with someone that was transgressing my boundaries, because I just would say it's just safer to walk away. It's better to walk away. But then there was something shifted, and I said, no, I'm going to stand my ground here and I'm going to play this out. Um, I think before that, I was much more dangerous in a chaotic way than I am now. Now I feel like I am dangerous in a directed, measurable way. My choice. Whereas before, I would be prone to reacting to a loved one, to a partner, to another person on the street when I was a little bit drunk in a way that would be erratic, without awareness, and I'd be bringing violence without consciousness. And so to embody the dark masculine is first to claim the understanding of how powerful we can be, and then accepting the responsibility of owning that and training that and bringing awareness into every facet of that. And for me, I see it as this spectrum of like, if someone's challenging my boundary, they put like 1 Newton meter of force against my boundary. And I'm like, well, that's easy. I just get to like give them a look and say, hey, what do you think you're doing? And then that force gets stronger and stronger and stronger until the point where I have no choice but to say, I'm going at you now with everything that I have, because my life depends on it, or the life of someone I love depends on it. And then trying to find every nuanced degree of force in that range and understand what my awareness is in that, what my reaction or response is going to be in that field. And to me, that is the embodiment of my dark masculine in a very real physical sense.
Yeah, it really is. That's the piece for me. The dark masculine, more than anything, he just completely owns his boundaries, and he is through that level of self awareness, knows what his boundaries are and why. So there is this inner fuel that then supports it. It's not a superficial boundary that I'm just making up and I just want to like make this boundary so that I can tell you to go away. But there is this real inner knowing of this is this is entering a place that feels uncomfortable and I'm needing to shift it, or I either need to remove you from the situation or myself from the situation, but I do not comply. I do not accept this. And one of the biggest things that I learned with around boundaries is it's not an expectation on another to do something, but what am I willing to accept in my sphere of safety and within my sphere of my energetic bubble, and then how fiercely am I willing to support that. And during this men's initiation that we're going to be doing, one of the exercises is really deepening into the dark masculine and giving it space to really be activated in the body, and also as a pilgrim to meet this dark masculine. And I remember when I was in the Netherlands last year, I had one of the men come up to me and ask about the dark masculine, because he was like, all I see around me with this dark masculine is these men that are wanting to be loud and rough, and just all of this aggression is coming out in their expressions of the dark masculine, which is fair enough because there's a lot of repression that's happened to that dark masculine within, and he's wanting to express it out. And so he sat in front of me and I was like, am I screaming? And he's like, no. Am I moving and being violent? And he's like, no. I said, but do you feel my power? And he's like, yeah. And I said, that is the power that I fight for love with. And I am here holding love. But if you start to move out of love, then I'm, with the force that I'm holding here right now, either going to invite you back into love, or I'm going to create an environment around myself where there is love. And the amount of force that I can muster my dark masculine, because sometimes we need to hear things that aren't nice to hear. Sometimes I'm, in the past I've been in self-sabotaging patterns that have been pulling at my soul, and I needed a friend to come in and go, Jace, like, this is not the man I want you to be. I can't love you when you're like this, and I love you so much that I want to love you, but when you're doing this, I can't. And it's that man or woman that comes in and says, this is not okay. You are not behaving in the way that's honoring yourself now. And that's the dark masculine that's coming in and inviting love and softness and ease. So it's not always about this aggression. It can actually be just piercing through the story and the mask to really penetrate into the matter of what is happening right now. Like, what is the matter with you right now, and being able to pierce into that to really, allow love back in.
So well said. So well said. Yeah. When you were first describing it, I could feel the truth of it. The dark masculine is the confidence in my body, of me inhabiting my body, confidence that I belong here. I have a responsibility here, and I take that duty and that responsibility so um, so importantly into my heart. And then another phrase was fierce love. It's like to be able to love fiercely, not to be passive with it, to be active. And yeah, it's not all about boundaries at all. Like that ability to penetrate and to bring the clarity of the dark masculine, which is like, I'm not here to pander to your emotions. I'm here to penetrate you so that you can feel where your shadows are, so that you can have awareness, even though it may be painful for you. And penetrating anything, if it is not done with awareness, if it's not done with presence, like you penetrate a woman and she's not ready, she's not open, she's not available for that. And it can be extraordinarily traumatic. And that's why the dark masculine requires a man to have so much awareness and to be ready for that responsibility. Because if you go around starting to penetrate people, maybe you can see the truth of the way that this person is acting in front of you. That's not in their highest good, and they're hurting people around them. They're hurting themselves. And if you go in there without the presence, without the awareness, without the skill to be able to wield that sword of the dark masculine, you can cut them, you can wound them, and they may not recover from that in this lifetime. But if you have the skill, you're not some hack with the sword. You then become a surgeon, and you can get in, you can do the job, and you can get out, and then you can be there to help the healing as well. And so I love seeing that image of the quintessential swordsman that knows just the precise strike, and then is connected with his eyes with you when he's training you or when he's piercing you, and it's like, I'm going to pierce you, but you're not going to hurt from this, or you're not going to die from this. This is going to make you stronger. And yeah, I feel particularly touched with the dark masculine. I feel that this in the Jungian archetypes, the warrior energy really is like a large part of the dark masculine energy. And I think it's lost a lot. The honorability of the warrior, at least. There's a lot of the shadow warriors out there, but the honorability, the true the samurai like Miyamoto Musashi, who was not just the best swordsman in Japanese history, but he also became one of the greatest artists and meditators and philosophers in Japanese history. And he integrated love into his fierceness, and to cultivate that is I think mastery of the dark masculine.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And one piece that, staying with this analogy of the sword, that I just feel is so relevant with this piece around the toxic and the immaturity as well, is if you want to be a swordsman like, I forget his name, but
Musashi.
Musashi, that you need to first be clumsy with the sword before you can become a master. And if there is no space in our environment to be able to pick up a sword and be clumsy, then we're never going to be a master. And if everyone tells us when we pick up a sword, oh, that's dangerous, you shouldn't do that, you're going to hurt someone, then there is already almost this fear within ourselves to pick up our own sword and say, I claim this space. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that I love about the container that we create is we give men this moment to pick up a sword and drop it and let it be all heavy and clumsy and learn to pick up the skills so that, you know, they can start to make those decisions, those incisions, those, you know, separations of what do I choose and what do I choose not. So yeah, it's really beautiful. So thank
I'm
you for that.
appreciating your mind so much right now. That was so artfully said. And like we have in sword training, we have practice swords as well. And a retreat space is like coming into a dojo. Here are your practice swords, and you're going to be able to hit each other with it, and it's not going to cut. But like go at it and like learn how to use this tool that is yours. It's
Mm,
your birthright.
yeah, beautiful.
I'd like to just throw in at this juncture that so far nobody has been beheaded in the initiation journey. So if
Not,
anyone was
not
concerned about
literally.
what's around,
Energetically, perhaps.
sure.
Nice one.
Hey, Ryan, I actually wanted to pose a question to you as well, if I could.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, and that is regarding the dark masculine and penetration from a business sense. So that place of being immature and business and wanting to penetrate into business without really knowing the self and what does that kind of look like in comparison to being more centered, being more focused, having that clarity of my dark masculine. And from that place, I step into business because I feel like this is something that you've got experience with from how maybe how you used to do business to how you're doing business more now.
Yeah, well, I really loved how Terence framed it so poetically and beautifully before in terms of the honor of the samurai and how they can infuse love into the way that they do things, and brought up the union archetypal theory, which essentially says that if a warrior is in his fullness, he's able to go through pain to achieve something worthwhile. And there's that meaning and that purpose there. But if he's in his shadows, in the active shadow pole of that warrior is the sadist. They actually, because they're unconscious, they can only use their own insecurity to then inflict pain on people. Or maybe if they're more passive, they'll inflict pain on themselves without that consciousness. And I feel like recently just this conversation and opening it back up super supportive for me in this moment, because vulnerably speaking, I've been struggling to own my warrior in its fullness recently. So in terms of speaking to what it looks like, I can tell you what it doesn't. And I'd say the masochism, the fear of my sword might cut people. And if it does, I might get slandered and I don't feel safe and I'm scared of being rejected. And there's some of these pieces that have been floating around for me. And as a result, I've been cutting myself. I've been tripping up on my sword and it's been cutting me around. And I haven't been having that discernment and wholeness in my heart to know what my boundaries are in terms of what's meaningful to me. So I can pick up the sword skillfully and go out there in my fullness with an open heart and say, yes, I know this is aligned with me. I know that it's of service to other people, and therefore I will steamroll through. And the haters that are projecting their insecurities and trying to act with a sadist cutting tongue or typing like on keyboard warriors, you can do you, because I know I'm integrity with myself. And so this is just something I'm sitting with at the moment, but I really am appreciative of the conversation and excited to have the space now with this awareness to practice.
Beautiful.
So thank you.
Yeah, it actually, I'm reminded of when I was at the last initiation journey in Australia. When was that? In Feb. And you were there, Ryan, as well, where I actually recognized that my own inner sword was actually stabbing me in the back. As opposed to putting it into a holster, I'd actually just put it down all through my ribs almost. And I had this energetic experience of actually needing to pull out this sword because every time I didn't want to hurt someone else, so I would just stab myself to make sure that the pointy end of the sword wasn't pointed at someone else. And maybe you can relate, and maybe some of the other guys have as well. But that's just definitely something that I don't want to harm others, so I end up harming myself, and using my sword not to create clear boundaries, but just in a very self-harming way.
Thank you for sharing that. That's supportive for me right now.
Hey, Rowan, how is this all landing for you? Do you have any questions? Is it something that's
So I'm finding this fantastic. Though there's a lot that I can really strongly relate to from this the kind of dark masculine being something that is um kind of shunned, which I really relate to. Like I think personally I relate to, and I'm there's a lot of things where things have been kind of phrased that kind of almost like clearing the fog. That actually kind of there's the feeling that something's not right, but actually, yeah, okay, it's kind of here and now. Kind of, I've been getting a lot of just hearing you kind of the experience and the ability to kind of that experience leading to being able to put into words and solidify kind of experience. I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but yeah, to just kind of describe that.
yeah,
And yeah, the effect of like both sort of kind of stabbing yourself so that you can't hurt others, and the need to make space for that, make space and acceptance, I think, is something that I don't know. I'm going on a journey here. It's it's quite interesting. I'm really enjoying, but it
beautiful. Well, it's
yeah.
great to have you here, and just be sure to unmute yourself if you've got any questions, or you can put your hand up, and then we can ask you a
Mm,
question. But otherwise, enjoy the journey, and thanks for being
yeah. One thing I really did like from that aspect of both the I guess the martial art, but having that um having that space to accept accept the dark masculine. It's kind of making me consider many things.
here.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
for sure. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that for a sec. Thank you
Mm,
for the
yeah.
question or leading in.
Thank you.
Um, and one of the things that I feel is that, if we talk about the evolution of humanity and man, that, we were cavemen at one point. And as we evolved through humanity, there's been this, especially recently, I believe, this desire to really neglect the past and really just drop off the body and just live from the head. And what that does is it actually disconnects us from that primal, raw aspect that, if someone is going to come and, take my child, that this primal protector is just going to step in the way and nothing is going to come through. But there's almost like this disconnect and this shame on our primal aspect, that it's dirty and stupid, but it is just raw and powerful. And luckily, that aspect isn't in full control, but it's still one of those, powerful tools that needs to be embraced and used with then the heart and the mind and discernment to be able to really penetrate into the world. And I think, there is a lot of passivity that's happening in our world through the separation from the polarities, and although also the separation within us in the polarity of the light and the dark. And if we can just all make it this gentle gray, and no one's going to harm anyone, and no one's going to be light and bright, and no one's going to be dark, everyone's just going to be a little mediocre, which just like eeks my whole body, that word. Pete, you want to have a speak to this?
Do you remember the expression snag, SNAG,
Yeah.
sensitive new age guy? And it was almost a parody, it was almost put out of, in the way of, hey, that guy's really sensitive. It sort of had a meaning of, I'm not being really masculine, or that person mightn't have been.
Yeah, and that turned into being a very popular type of individual to, going from the snag as almost like a way to tease someone for being hypersensitive to being the role model of what a man should look like in the world.
Yeah. And it was almost like having pushed it too far, it's now sort of coming back the other way. And I certainly haven't heard that expression for a good decade or two, really,
It's
which
funny
is
because
probably a good thing.
yeah, I was talking about this last night with my partner and her daughter, and I was telling her about the evolution of men kind of in our lifetime, and the introduction of the snag, and the generations of men. And you really just need to look at my father, and probably the father of most men on this call, and compare that to look at my dad when he was 20, and look at the 20-year-olds today. There is a huge disparity in what it means to be a man. Whereas if we looked at my dad at 20 years and his grandfather when he was 20, there wouldn't have been the same kind of differences in my imagination. And I obviously weren't there. But yeah, Terence, I'd love to see what you have on this.
Dude, I feel so fired up right now. I just love the awakening spirit of masculinity that I'm feeling in the world right now. It's like we all went to sleep. It's like men just went to sleep. And it's not even that we wanted to. It's like we were drugged, and we're all being in this coma where boys are like from the very youngest age are being told, no, don't be like a boy, don't do that. And this passivity, this kind of slow, gentle gray niceness, this nice guy, this snag, and the shame that's attached to a man that is not towing the line of what this larger culture and the wave that came in over us that said, you just need to be really good. You just need to be quiet. You just need to be nice. You need to be not aggressive. You shouldn't compete. Like everyone's a winner. Like all of the things that make you male, like they're bad now, okay? And we're just gonna all be these neutered little good boys and girls as well, unfortunately, but from the boy perspective. And I see this as it's like it's not so much we need to learn something new. It's we need to awaken. And it's about taking off the handbrake that has been culturally put on us since we were very, very young, and then progressively ramped down to like, no, less, less, less of you and more of what we tell you you should be. And then that feeling when the handbrake is off, like if you can imagine, like imagine a moment when you don't give a shit anymore, like absolutely none about what other people think of your actions, because whatever is in front of you, you're so hyper focused on like, this is my objective, and there's nothing that's going to get in the way of me. And that rawness where all the handbrakes are off and you are single minded, and the aliveness that, as far as I know, I definitely feel it when I'm like that, when I am not concerned at all about the world and its impressions of me, and any concept of shame has gone out the window. I am the most alive. I am the most free in that moment. And I want to find ways to take off all of the handbrakes that have been put on me through my life, and to get to a place where I am unbridled, where I'm wild and I'm free man again. And so for me, it's like, how do we do that? And retreats like this, honestly, the reason I have aligned myself with this offering, I'm enamored of it because it is one of the few places where the wild version of men is not just welcome with some token gesture of like, you're welcome, you're welcome. It's like, no, you're expected to come as that wild man. Where are you? Come on, come out. And not aggressively, invitationally, but it's there. And it's there the whole time. Like, what more is there to you that you are not allowing yourself to be? And in true rite of passage transformation experience, like that's what I crave. That's why I love stepping back into this container, whether I'm a participant, whether I'm an assistant, whether I'm a teacher. It's like this field is where we get to remember that we are wild men and we've forgotten. We're still kind of dozing from that drug that was put in our drinks and our bottles as babies. We don't have to stay asleep. And for me, I'm so invested in waking up. I fucking want it. I want full control of myself. Yeah.
Thank you. Honor to that, and
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing with so much passion. I'm so
No, dude.
excited to be delving into this week with you in under a month now, and really just feeling our passions that are so aligned with this. And the analogy that I often use with a car is, we started with a V8 and then it was all getting too much. So they started unplugging the spark plugs until it's like, there we go, we've got one or two cylinders left. That you can't do any harm with that. And really just helping men to find this capacity to not only re-plug in the engine, but also what that means, because there was a word that you used before, which is responsibility. And as we deepen into our power, we have a greater ability to respond. But we also, through that, have a greater responsibility to be careful or to take care in how we do something, and not just go, I'm bigger and bolder now, and now I can do whatever I want and no one's going to stop me, and I can just, push people out of the way because look how huge I am now. It's not about that at all. And, and you're going to either love it or hate it, Terence, but I'm always talking about analogies and these metaphors of how can I visualize something so that it just makes sense inside my being. And when I just imagine myself as this giant, that I'm 20 meters tall, and I want to take a step into the world, I want to penetrate myself, I want to move forward into the world, there's actually quite a lot of harm I could do just simply by putting my big 5 meter foot down on the ground. Because there could be a car, there could be people, there could be animals. I'm so big, I don't care. Or I walk with ease and grace, but with immense power. And that is the balance that is so important, that as we increase our capacity to use the sword, that we then don't turn into this show off that wants to just let everyone see how good I am with the sword. Because, as it's come up before, and, and the ultimate art of Aikido is, how can I move away from violence? How can I transmute violence into something else that's not that? And that's really the art of, that stillness and the dark masculine that doesn't need to penetrate, but can transmute and stand up to whatever it's being met with. Whereas, if when I didn't have a strong masculine or my dark masculine, and something would, meet me in the world, I'm ashamed to say that I would literally run away with my tail between my legs and just go, I didn't mean to cause any harm. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt my family. Don't do any of these things. Whereas now it's just like, no, I'm not okay with that. And that doesn't mean that you can't do what you want to do, but this is what I'm doing and this is what my family is doing, and I'm responsible for them.
I love analogy, man. Bring them on. I think Our ancient minds are so well wired to be able to receive story and analogy and to draw comparisons. The age-old tenet of as within, so without, as above, so below. Everything within everything, this holographic universe. And so when you can nail a good analogy, mate, you have me, hook, line, and sinker. And you've nailed a few here tonight. So yeah, keep them coming. I fancy myself a bit of an analogist as well at times. So I look forward to our mutual weaving of that.
Mm.
Yeah, the image that keeps coming to me of all of this and this responsibility and this power that we have and being so big and needing to take great care is this sense of the confidence that I think all men are craving. We've all met that man that says nothing, isn't showy, is understated, yet they radiate a power. And then as we get to find out about this enigmatic figure that we've seen somewhere, like, who's that? Then we hear, oh, that's like a really accomplished da da da. And some of the best fighters in the world, you'd never know. Like Miyamoto Musashi, like just would sit and he'd paint towards the end of his life and do pottery or, carve things. And Ip Man was this very diminutive little martial artist and like wasn't showy at all. And some of the martial arts teachers that I've had, they don't talk a big game. They're like, I'm over that. I don't need to prove to anyone anymore. I just need to prove to myself that I'm worthy of this power that I've cultivated.
Mm.
And that confidence that radiates from a truly masterful man, we've all seen it. And that's what we all crave. That's what we all aspire to be, I believe, as men, is to be masters of ourselves and to no longer need to prove ourselves to anyone. And the path to that is being clumsy. Get out there and you've got to practice. If you're not used to standing up to people in your life and you got people walking all over you, be willing to make a fool of yourself in that and say like, hey, don't get away from me, whatever it takes. And then as time goes by, you won't even need to do anything. You can just use your energy and your eyes, maybe not even your eyes, and just exert a field that says, not here, thank you. And the deepest Aikido, and the thing about Aikido I loved is that we have as much care for our enemy as we do for ourselves in our safety. And to understand that that attacker is just another element of me that is now here for me to learn about myself through the engagement with. And when we start to really claim that there is nothing in life that is happening to you, everything is happening through you, that we can claim the responsibility of our dark masculine and live it in a way that is righteous and honorable. Triggered again, Pete?
No, not at all. I'm just falling more deeply in love with you, Terence.
Oh, me too, bro. With myself and you.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely beautiful, and I resonate very, very deeply with it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Um, have you got anything that you would like to speak to around the dark masculine, or any questions that you might have regarding the dark masculine, something that maybe doesn't have clarity for you?
Not really, not now. I mean, at the start of this call, I didn't really know what you meant by the dark masculine, and I'm feeling really sated and nourished by this conversation. I'm a bit like you, Rowan, so thanks for providing a lead on that. One of the things I do notice is that, I've got a couple of sons, and my younger son, who's now 25, he has got to be one of the most conscious people I know. And he's definitely not a snag, and he's strong as anything. And to me, he's sort of embodying the dark masculine in a beautifully holistic and balanced way. And I'm just so fucking proud of him. I love him to bits. And I see that in lots of men around me too these days. So maybe one part of the dark masculine is finding men to stand with me, to be in good company, and to be able to have men around me who I can admire, who I can look up to, who I can learn from, and who are willing to receive whatever gifts I have as well.
Yeah.
So that, we're helping each other.
Yeah.
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 If I, sorry.
I was just going to say, if you want to master the art of the sword, then it's good to be able to practice with another swordsman.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rowan, you were going to say something, I think.
Yes, yeah, I mean, that really resonated with me there. That, yeah, um, having other kind of um, other travelers on that journey, other people who kind of you can bounce off, and you can not necessarily kind of. I think this whole conversation it's made me not start recognizing things of the masculine that I'm really not in tune with. Um, but I really can see how, yeah, being surrounded by others who you can like, okay, that's their connection, their rock, and the things that to help get connected with that.
Mm.
Um,
One of the beautiful things about the initiation journey, Rowan, is that it is with other men, and
mm,
we're all in this container together, and so we're all having separate but universal experiences at the same time, and that engenders this incredible connection with the other men in it.
yeah.
A really deep connection that's not because we might barrack for the same footy team or like the same foods or anything like that, but something that's really deep, that's internal, where we've been touching each other's truths and recognizing truth in the other and
Mm,
supporting it and encouraging it, or calling it in even. That was the invitational word that Terence was using before. We're calling it
yeah.
in to be more of ourselves rather than less.
The thing
Yeah.
is, Rowan, I think that it is hardwired, in my experience from what I've witnessed, it's hardwired in men to be able to learn vicariously through close association with others. And
Mm,
if we go back historically, we had hunting parties and we knew who in that hunting party was the best tracker. And we knew who was the best archer. We knew who was the best fighter. We knew who was the fastest runner. And we would celebrate them for that capacity. And there's something in us when we get to witness someone else and we get to compare and contrast ourselves to them and leverage them as an opportunity to compete, even in an honorable way. Like, I see how great you are and I want to be as good, if not better than you. So let me leverage you to try to help myself. But when you come into a retreat space like this, where the masks are off and we're ourselves, and there's the good, the bad, the ugly, the light, the shadow, the dark, and then you get to see these other men, and in your hard wiring, you'll be able to witness the attributes in them that you are thirsting for in yourself. And then you'll get to witness them and how they feed themselves or how they satiate their own thirst. And then you get to learn how to do that for yourself. And this is the way that I believe it is essential for men to gather together, because we only really can rise together.
yeah. I think, yeah, I am just seeing so much value in that. Yeah, I've come from a background of small village, kind of surrounded mostly by kind of growing up with girls, and kind of without kind of particularly strong kind of, yeah, without a kind of, to carry on the analogy, without a kind of practice space to kind of work out my masculinity. And yeah, so with that whole, yeah, it's yeah, I see the value in that so much.
I'm really enjoying at the moment. To me, you appear like this sponge that's been dry and haven't had the experience of witnessing men that have been doing their work, and just to be like, wow, there's another world here. And I'm really luxuriating in seeing you take this on, man.
That's certainly how it feels. I'm just like, it's like fireworks going off in my brain, and like realizing and just like connecting dots, and just kind of, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like straight after this call, I'm going to go for a run and like listen to, yeah, kind of, because I've kind of recognized kind of for the first time in a long time what that kind of sense of fury when I'm kind of running or when I'm climbing, kind of connecting that in. But even when I'm doing a lot of these sports, I'm very kind of, yeah, I'm so used to just kind of not, yeah, kind of pretending it's not there, or like not, yeah, not honoring it. And it's like, yeah, I'm feeling a lot of things, and kind of, yeah, honoring it is that certainly one thing.
I'd have to say, if I was we were on a call together, I'd be very curious about that and digging into why you would do that and how that serves you. But yeah, thank you for sharing.
No, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Ryan, did you have something you wanted to share? I saw you unmute before.
Yeah, one thing I felt really valuable with my experience doing the initiation journey in February was the confrontation that arose in a safe space, which for me was plentiful. As I was clumsily learning to wield my sword, I was also inviting opportunities to trigger people and be triggered by other people, by other men in the space. And it wasn't just me, there were many people in the space that were working through their own limits and kind of like a hermit crab's cracking elements of their shell and getting out of their skin. And that was really powerful to get to do that in the space. It really was. And I just wanted to pre-frame, Rowan, that if you're considering doing this, to be aware that it will be, to be aware, and also that it is one of the most valuable parts of the journey, that you're opening yourself up for confrontation, but in a healthy way, and to get to practice that and bring it into your world.
Yeah, fair to say I'm apprehensive about that. Yeah, but I look forward to it. But yeah, yeah.
How do we bring love into conflict? How can we remain in a space of love and loving and be in conflict and be in the joy of the conflict, or the heat of it, or the fierceness of it? And it's a skill that I'm still learning myself, but it's another one of those great questions for me, along with the imagining of violence. But can I be in an argument with someone who's been ripping me off and still love them as my brother, and yet really like bring it with the most full on, beautiful, fierce energy that I can?
And
Another,
to speak to that for a second is that difference with the expectation and the acceptance. And so I have then this, just using the analogy, of just having this confrontation with another man where we don't believe the same thing. And we're actually really open to hearing the other person, but at the same time, like, I am going to bring my full truth and my full expression to this because it's, a critical situation, whatever it is, but also open to them never not having an expectation that they're going to agree or that we're going to come to a compromise, but this fact that I can, without needing them to agree, still with my full essence, be able to share something. That was kind of the first thing that was coming up for me, Terence, when you were mentioning that. And how can I find my balance of not getting into agitation and not like I just want to punch you right now, and recognizing that feeling that comes alive inside of me when that happens. That there's this agitation, and breathing through that and recognizing that this anger is my fire. This is my inner radiance that is just saying this is something that's important to me. Like, otherwise, why would I care? Why would I want to punch this guy if he doesn't agree, if it wasn't of value to me or important to me, and needing to honor my own boundary in that. So yeah, that's an interesting question, but that was my first response.
In a much more
Yeah,
gentle, in a much more gentle kind of way of exploring this topic, off the back end of that retreat, it opened me and my friends groups up to a lot more confrontation, which actually created a more pure connection, because things that were boiling under the surface, left unsaid, led to resentment. And I found that with an ability to lean into confrontation, there was more conflict in the dynamic, but way more love as well, because it wasn't being withheld behind these unsaid truths. And that was the beauty of it. So in the space at the initiation journey, it's impossible not to land in love at the end of the confrontation there. It's just clumsy when we're learning it.
Mm, yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Ryan. And I love that you came back to that. I felt Rowan having that sense of conflict and confrontation being something that's very challenging. I'll put it that way. And uh, for me, the energy with confrontation, it can still be quite uncomfortable in my system. And there is this part of me that wants to collapse in and avoid it at all costs. Like I'm gonna go. I'm taking off. I don't want to be near this, or I'm just gonna facade and play really nice so that you just don't attack me anymore. And um and I want you to imagine, anyone that's listening to this, in rather than attacking, rather than running away, just imagine yourself being there, but you're in a container of that intensity of emotion that wants you to collapse or wants you to flight or wants you to fight. That you have that inside yourself and your container starts opening and you breathe into it. And it's the aliveness within that you just build and build and build with as you practice, that you don't actually need to do anything with it. It's just that you can remain there and still stay connected to yourself in your center. And that, if nothing else, is just to remain present and in your awareness. And wherever you're at, Rowan, with your process with conflict and confrontation, if it's just something that you don't want to have anything to do with, or you kind of love it and you feed off the aliveness in an addictive way, which I've met people that do that. Like, the art of embodying masculinity and claiming our manhood, to me, is, aside from the light masculine, the dark masculine, it's to remain present, full presence and consciousness awareness in the moment of what is happening now. Am I still with me, or am I leaving here? Am I checking out the back door, running out? Am I like hiding under the carpet now? Am I like going red with rage so I don't have to feel my shame and fighting? Whatever your strategy is in that moment, like, imagine something different, something of just witnessing and being present with it. And that is something that's available to all of us. But yeah, as Ryan, you so eloquently pointed out, like, your experience of it was, what I heard you say was that following this, your friendship groups allowed for more conflict, and it was a generator of greater intimacy and connection. And that through conflict, we can come into deeper relationship with our world. When we enter into conflict and we learn how to fight fair, and we learn how to fight with love, for love, I believe that it's possible for us to come into greater intimacy with ourselves and the world. And whatever our enemy, perceived or otherwise, is, that we can maybe even come into a space where we learn to love them through conflict.
Absolutely.
There's also another aspect of loving, which is when somebody who loves me points to something that I'm unconscious of, or not as conscious of as I might be, a shadow, if you like, and I've certainly had experiences where that's taken place, and for me, it's just been one of the most loving things a friend can do. And
Mm.
and if it's done not necessarily an aggressively confrontational way, but it's simply this is what I'm seeing, then it's an invitation for me to consider, well, they're seeing something here which I'm not. And to me, that's a beautiful offering, and it's an invitation for me to grow into a deeper awareness than what was there beforehand. So
Mm.
that's another way in which love can actually be incisive, and be a useful tool in growth.
Mm. Beautifully said.
Yeah. Hey Pete, so we're coming to the end. We got maybe 10 minutes. So what I would love is maybe just in 1 or 2 minutes, can you summarize your perspective or your understanding of the dark masculine? And just what feels, yeah.
I'll give it a go.
I'm
Yeah, well, it seems to me that the dark masculine is that part of me which which stands my ground. It's a way of me not only understanding within myself what my own truth is, but being able to express it externally. And that involves, of course, holding a boundary, being able to be a protector of myself and others, um, and yeah, not being afraid to express exactly what's going on. It's a way of consciousness as well, so that it requires me to be awake and to be alert, not only in both directions. In other words, I need to know what's going on inside here, which means that in turn that I've been doing and continuing to do my own inner work, but also being aware of what's going on externally. And that sort of harps back to what Terence was saying before about so within, within, so without, or I think it was vice versa, one or the other. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, it's just, I don't know about you guys, but I think I live in an interconnected universe. So what's happening inside here is also a reflection of the outside and vice versa.
Yeah, 100%. Beautiful. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, pleasure.
Ryan, same question for you.
What's become really clear to me on this call that I feel really inspired by is the dark masculine is the warrior. It's the aspect within the psyche of every man that has the capacity to embrace discomfort and pain, to protect, leverage skills, and when done consciously for the benefit of themselves and the values that they have and the benefit of the people that they care about close to them and in the world.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Terence, let's.
Hey, can I adopt that one? That sounded even better than what I said. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, look, the the sense of the dark masculine being that which penetrates matter with presence. I like that as the distillation of all that we've talked about. I love the archetypal warrior, but I also feel the dark masculine in all of the archetypes. And to me, the dark masculine is that within me which wants to feel alive here and now, wants to feel wild and free and completely unapologetic for being incarnated. That I'm not seeking to escape through higher dimensions, that I'm not looking to meditate my way out of pain, that I'm here and I'm feeling it all, and it is all perfect right now. Um, this raw insatiability for the juice of life as it is right now would be the essence of the dark masculine for me. And again, that concept of just pure presence as a physical being. Um, yeah, that's what it means to me.
Beautiful. Yeah, for myself, I really love that, what you were saying around penetrating matter with consciousness, Terence, and that really is a big part for me as well. That, you know, what's below the surface, the depth of my roots, how grounded am I in this physical being, in this matter, and the deeper my roots are, and the more grounded I am in my being. You know, for me, the dark masculine is not only that place of penetration, but it's also that the muscle to withstand my environment, to be able to hold my center with all of the tornadoes around. And also touching on something that you mentioned, Terence, is I've recognized that my dark masculine has become much stronger within me when I got to a point of going, I'm worthy of being me, and I am incarnate for a reason, and I'm going to express my magic, because for me not to do so is actually reducing the capacity of all of my environment by actually not saying, here I am and I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up fully and be of service and be of essence in this world. And that's what I really feel is also this dark masculine that just says, I have every fucking right to be here and I'm going to show up. And not play this soft little game of, I don't know, should I be here or not be here? If I'm not meant to be here, I won't be here, but I am here, so I'm meant to be. So now I'm going to show up. And when I could shift that within myself to actually give myself value, to say, like, I'm a worthy human being, and that took a lot of work, my dark masculine went, okay, well, now if you're going to show up, let's fucking show up. And that has just really felt, you know, moved right through to my base and really grounded through that base chakras, and really, you know, allowing my root, my sex, my hara, my center to be present and penetrate into the world, because that is how we're designed and what we're designed for. And to not act from my natural essence is actually taking magic away from the world. And that's selfish. So yeah, that's where I'm at with my dark masculine right now, and I'm so excited about this topic and what it means to men in the world right now. So, Rowan, is there anything you'd like to share at the end of this? I really appreciated your presence during this call and your participation.
Yeah, I mean, I've really, I've really got a lot out of this, and just hearing people's understandings and kind of going into the different kind of facets of it, and I think it's just drawn a kind of it's like been something that's hidden there, that kind of, it's so easy to be shunned because there's this kind of, my understanding is from talking just now has been that there's this force, there's this side that kind of, it's there, kind of it's a part of who you are, but it's so easy to, if you've grown up with it or produced the habits of it, to just kind of push it under the rug, ignore it, kind of, and kind of, it's a force that's there, it flows, it's part of who I am, and that, hang on, this is a massive kind of, it's a, if it's, I think I've kind of, it's so often hidden because you kind of don't want to be associated with kind of releasing it badly, and kind of, yeah, taking control, taking ownership, honoring it. I think, yeah, honoring it and giving it the kind of love it deserves and that attention to kind of focus it as a kind of force for loving yourself, loving the world, I think is, I suppose that's the big part that I've taken, kind of, I'm taking away from this is like, oh, I'm going to go out searching for this and I'm going to kind of see how I can honor it.
Beautiful. Magic.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, gentlemen, I want to thank you all for attending and being here. It's, you know, a topic that is so passionate in my heart and so important for men right now. And I believe that our connection to our dark masculine is directly related to our capacity to be able to show up in the world. And there's nothing more than I wish is for more men to step into their full capacity and really show up in the world. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your input, gentlemen. I'll look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon. See you guys.